without liberty and liberty without order are equally destructive. Every reform movement has a lunatic fringe. Women should have free access to every field of labor which they care to enter, and when their work is as valuable as that of a man it should be paid as highly. The worst of all fears is the fear of living. In life, as in football, the principle to follow is to hit the line hard. For those who fight for it, life has a flavor the sheltered will never know. Courtesy is as much a mark of a gentleman as courage. No man is above the law, and no man is below it. 90% of the work in this country is done by people who don't feel good. I put myself in the way of things happening, and they happened. I care not what others think of what I do, but I care very much about what I think of what I do. That is character. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. The unforgivable crime is soft hitting. Do not hit at all if it can be avoided, but never hit softly. All the resources we need are in the mind. Complaining about a problem without posing a solution is called whining. This country will not be a good place for any of us to live in unless we make it a good place for all of us to live in. It is true of the nation, as of the individual, that the greatest doer must also be a great dreamer. The only man who never makes a mistake is the one who never does anything. People ask the difference between a leader and a boss. The leader works in the open, and the boss in covert. The leader leads, and the boss drives. The most important single ingredient in the formula of success is knowing how to get along with people. There is quite enough sorrow and shame and suffering and baseness in real life, and there is no need for meeting it unnecessarily in fiction. We should not forget that it will be just as important to our descendants to be prosperous in their time as it is to us to be prosperous in our time. The government is us, we are the government, you and I. Theodore Roosevelt. Black care rarely sits behind a rider whose pace is fast enough. A thorough knowledge of the Bible is worth more than a college education. Aggressive fighting for the right is the noblest sport the world affords. Americanism is a question of principle, of idealism, of character. It is not a matter of birthplace, or creed, or line of descent. The greatest gift life has to offer is the opportunity to work hard at work worth doing. There can be no life without change, and to be afraid of what is different or unfamiliar is to be afraid of life. With self-discipline most anything is possible. It may be true that he travels farthest who travels alone, but the goal thus reached is not worth reaching. I have a perfect horror of words that are not backed up by deeds. To educate a man in mind and not in morals is to educate a menace to society. I can do one of two things. I can be President of the United States or I can control Alice Roosevelt, his 19-year-old daughter. I cannot possibly do both. Each one must do his part if we wish to show that the nation is worthy of its good fortune. The only man who never makes a mistake is the one who never does anything. Nobody cares how much you know, until they know how much you care. 9/10 of wisdom consists in being wise in time. Speak softly and carry a big stick. It is no use to preach to children if you do not act decently yourself. For us is the life of action, of strenuous performance of duty. Let us live in the harness, striving mightily. Let us rather run the risk of wearing out than rusting out. We demand that big business give the people a square deal. In return we must insist that when anyone engaged in big business honestly endeavors to do right he shall himself be given a square deal. There were all kinds of things I was afraid of at first, ranging from grizzly bears to mean horses and gunfighters, but by acting as if I was not afraid I gradually ceased to be afraid. There is not one among us in whom a devil does not dwell. At some time, on some point, that devil masters each of us. It is not having been in the dark house, but having left it, that counts. If there is not the war, you don't get the great general. If there is not a great occasion, you don't get a great statesman. If Lincoln had lived in a time of peace, no one would have known his name. The reader, the book lover, must meet his own needs without paying too much attention to what his neighbors say those needs should be. I have never in my life envied a human being who led an easy life, I have envied a great many people who led difficult lives and led them well. 9/10 of wisdom consists in being wise in time. Speak softly and carry a big stick. It is no use to preach to children if you do not act decently yourself.